In the year 2149, Earth was no longer alone in the universe, and the galactic network connected many worlds together with trade knowledge and peace. Each planet was represented by a single chosen voice, a leader who spoke for the entire population, and carried the trust of their world in every meeting for Earth. That person was Ambassador Lyra Kane, a woman known for her calm, strong voice and her ability to turn enemies into allies one cold morning as people across the planet tuned into the live broadcast from the Galactic Council chamber. Lyra stood under the shining banners of Earth, wearing the silver crest of the voice. The air was filled with quiet expectation. Her speech was meant to address a new trade route through the Orion, built a plan that could make Earth a major power in the network, but as she spoke, her words suddenly broke off, replaced by a strange, deep sound that was not human. It was not like any language known to the Council. It was like metal scraping inside, a cavern mixed with a pulse that seemed to shake the air, and for a moment every communication screen flickered with static before going black. The entire broadcast lasted only 12 seconds before cutting to the symbol of the Council emergency. Seal across Earth. People stared at blank screens in silence, some thinking it was a technical problem, others feeling a chill in their chest because that sound had not been random. It had carried something in it, something cold and intelligent within. Minutes, the Galactic Council sent out an official statement saying the voice of Earth had been lost during transmission. The word lost sent panic through the streets. The news traveled faster than light across networks and feeds, and soon every major city was filled with rumors. Some said pirates had taken her, others claimed she had been killed live on camera. But the most terrifying rumor whispered in crowded trains and dark alleys was that she had been taken by something that had no name. The president of Earth held a private meeting with the security command. No one outside that room knew what was said, but satellite arrays were redirected deep into the uncharted sectors of space. The old warships hidden in the lunar docks were brought online, and silent-coded orders were sent to military stations orbiting Mars somewhere in the Pacific Research Array. A group of scientists worked without pause to analyze the last seconds of the broadcast. They slowed the sound. They filtered the static. They mapped the pulses of the strange signal until one of them noticed that the frequency formed a pattern, not random at all. It was a set of numbers coordinates pointing to a place far beyond the known trade routes beyond, the border of mapped space. The scientist who found it said it felt like a message, a trail, but no one could agree if it was meant to lead them to Lyra or into a trap. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Earth's orbit, a ship unlike any human design drifted, silently, its surface shifting like liquid metal as it watched the planet below. Inside its dark hull, a figure sat chained to a glowing chair, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. Lyra Kane was alive, but her mind was filled with whispers in a language she could not understand. She tried to speak, but when she opened her mouth, only that same deep scraping sound came out, the sound that billions had heard before the screen went black. And somewhere in the depths of space, a voice that was not human said, "She is ready." While on Earth, leaders argued about the next step, some wanting to send diplomats, others demanding immediate war. But before a decision could be made, the deep space arrays picked up another signal, faint and broken but unmistakable. It was the same sound from Lyra's last broadcast, only this time it repeated 3 times before ending with something new. A sound that made every translator in the lab freeze in fear, because in the middle of the alien noise there was a human word, whispered low and sharp: war. And in that single moment, the peaceful image of Earth in the galactic network cracked like glass. Because if this was an enemy, they had chosen to make their first move, not with a fleet, not with a battle, but by taking. The one voice that united an entire planet and replacing it with a sound that promised only destruction. And as night fell over the cities of Earth, billions of eyes turned to the dark sky, searching for something they could not see, wondering if the war had already begun. The coordinates pulled from the strange signal pointed to a region of deep space known in old star maps only as the Silence Zone, a stretch of black between galaxies where no trade routes passed and no beacons burned. Council archives held almost nothing about it except one note written centuries ago by an explorer ship that vanished soon after entering its edge. The note simply said some places are not empty. They are waiting in the war room beneath the United Earth capital. A plan was forming. The president had called for a small fast unit to investigate without drawing attention, and so Unit Orion was activated, a name from the old defense records used for missions that required both secrecy and absolute loyalty. Its captain was Evan Cross, a man whose career had been built in the shadow of forgotten wars. He had seen the edges of known space and returned with scars both visible and hidden. His crew were chosen from the best pilots, engineers, and covert operatives Earth had, but as they prepared to leave, not all in the government agreed with the mission. Some argued that sending a single ship into unknown territory was madness. Others believed that finding the voice was the only way to stop panic from becoming open conflict. The departure of Orion was kept secret from the public, but rumors still spread. People claimed to see a black ship leaving the lunar docks without lights, moving faster than any human craft was meant to. In the quiet of the Orion briefing room, Captain Cross looked at the faces of his crew and told them only three things: the coordinates, the fact that Lyra Kane was likely alive, and the warning that the Silence Zone had a history no one understood as the ship cut across the darkness away from the safety of patrol lines. The crew could feel the weight of what they carried. It was more than a mission. It was the question of whether Earth would face war or not, but somewhere far behind them in the shadows of a comet tail, an object followed their path. It was no larger than a fighter craft, but its hull shifted like living metal, bending light around itself to stay unseen inside Orion. The hours passed in tense quiet, broken only by the hum of the engines and the occasional flicker on the long-range scans. At first they thought it was static or debris, but the flickers kept coming closer. The navigator warned that something was matching their speed without broadcasting a signal, and as Cross moved to check the scans himself, the ship shuddered under a sudden, invisible impact. Alarms screamed through the corridors. The crew scrambled to weapon stations, but the attacker was too fast to lock on. In a burst of light, it appeared before them. A shape of black glass and moving silver with no visible engines, it released small devices that scattered around Orion, attaching themselves to the hull with a sound like knives scraping metal. The engineer reported that strange vibrations were moving through the ship, making the systems glitch and the crew feel dizzy. Cross ordered full power to shields and weapons, and the gunner managed to hit one of the devices, which shattered and released a burst of sound that shook the crew to their bones. It was the same alien sound from Lyra's last broadcast, only louder, deeper. Almost inside their heads, the medic reported that 2 crew members had collapsed with nosebleeds and disorientation. But before they could respond, the alien craft pulled back, vanishing into the dark, leaving the remaining devices still clinging to Orion. The engineer worked fast, cutting power to certain sections to starve the devices of energy, and one by one they released and drifted away, but one was recovered, intact, brought to the cargo bay under heavy guard when the science officer connected it to an isolated console. It powered up on its own, projecting a small, flickering image of Lyra Kane, her face pale, her eyes silver, her voice no longer her own. She spoke slowly, as if each word was forced from deep within her, saying, "Earth must fall." The words froze everyone in the room. No one could speak for a long moment until Cross ordered the device shut down and locked away, but the damage was done. The crew now faced a truth none wanted to accept. Lyra was alive, but she was not herself, and if she was speaking for the enemy, then finding her might not stop the war, it might start it. As Orion moved deeper into the Silence Zone, the stars around them thinned until only darkness filled the screens, and the sensors began to fail. One by one, Ahead lay the coordinates, and whatever waited for them there but far away on Earth. A hidden council of military leaders had already made a choice. The fleets would be armed, the defenses raised. Because no matter what unit Orion found in the dark, the signal had already done its work, and the people were preparing for war. The silent zone swallowed Orion like an endless ocean without waves. The ship moved through darkness so complete that even the crew felt as if their eyes were closed. Sensors that worked in every other corner of known space now returned only static. And soft pulses that seemed to echo back from nowhere. The crew spoke in low voices as though afraid the black around them might be listening. The navigator reported faint traces of movement, but could not confirm what it was, and Cross ordered the scans to continue without pause in the dim light of the bridge. The recovered alien device sat sealed in a reinforced container, its metal surface shifting slightly, as if breathing, though it had been powered down. No one went near it after the image. Of Lyra had spoken those words, "Earth must fall." The sound of them still hung in the minds of everyone on board, and some had begun to whisper about whether the voice had been turned into a weapon herself. The science officer kept studying the strange frequency from the earlier attack and discovered it was more than just noise. It was a weapon aimed not at machines, but at the human brain. It could disrupt thought and memory. It could cause confusion, even change how a person saw reality if used. Long enough, it could override a mind entirely. The crew began to realize this meant Lyra had not betrayed Earth by choice. She had been taken and remade into something that could speak only the words her captors wanted her to speak. The thought made the air in the ship feel heavier as Orion drew closer to the coordinates. Strange signals began to appear on the comm system, short bursts of sound that vanished before they could be recorded. One of them was faintly human-sounding, almost like a voice calling for help, but no one could confirm it then. Without warning, the darkness outside the viewports rippled, and a fleet of shapes emerged, each one as black as the void, their hulls bending light like liquid. There was no sign of engines, no heat, no life signs, but they moved with perfect formation surrounding Orion in silence. The weapons officer waited for an order, but Cross held his hand up not yet as the black shapes circled the ship. A single narrow beam of light shot from the largest of them and painted across Orion's hull for a heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then the comm screen lit up and there was Lyra again. Her image clear as if she were standing in the room, but her expression was blank, her eyes still silver. "She," said Captain Cross, "you should not have come." And then the alien voice beneath hers spoke layered and cold, saying, "The voice belongs to us. Leave this place or Earth will burn." Cross stepped forward, demanding to know who they were and what they had done to her. But the alien voice only laughed a sound, like stone breaking underwater, and replied, "We are the Envari, and we are the silence between stars. We feed on the link between a people and their voice. Without that link, there is no unity. No defense, your world will be one of many we claim as the image." Faded. The black ships pulled back, opening a narrow gap as if inviting Orion to follow the coordinates, lay through that path, and Cross knew it could only be a trap. But turning away would mean abandoning Lyra and letting the Envari strike Earth. Without warning, he ordered the navigator to follow the gap, and the crew tensed as the black fleet closed in behind them, forcing them forward. The darkness ahead broke suddenly into light. A massive structure hung in space, its surface reflecting the glow of a distant star. It was shaped like a ring spinning slowly around a center of swirling blue energy. The sensors still read nothing, but the crew could see movement across. Its surface, small darting shapes that vanished into the ring's inner edge. The science officer whispered that the energy at its center matched the readings of a collapsed star, a black hole contained by impossible technology. And if the readings were right, the station was using its pull to power something beyond anything humans could imagine as they approached the outer edge of the ring. Lyra's voice returned over the comm, but this time softer, almost human. Again she said, They are inside my mind. They are inside every mind that speaks for their world. You must not let them take more. But then her voice broke, and the alien tone replaced it, saying, "Follow and see your fate before the transmission cut off again." Cross knew they were being led deeper into the enemy's territory, but the mission had not changed. They had to find the voice, bring her home, and somehow warn Earth of the enemy's true weapon before the first shot of the war was fired, yet as Orion passed into the shadow of the Great Ring. Every crew member felt the same cold thought in their mind. This was not the beginning of a battle. This was the beginning of something far worse, and somewhere far away in the black fleets gathering around Earth's outer defenses. The first silent orders of invasion were already being given. On Earth, the night sky over every major city seemed unchanged but far above. In the cold black of space, an invisible line had been crossed as the deep space arrays picked up. A message that spread across every frequency used by the galactic network, a message that was not asked for and could not be stopped. Screens in homes, streets, stations, and ships all across the planet flickered to life, without warning, showing the face of Lyra Kane. Pale and still with those unnatural silver eyes behind her, in the image shadows moved like water, and a low vibration filled the air before she spoke. The words came slowly, almost painfully, as if she were forcing them through. "A wall of resistance, people of Earth, your voice has chosen to destroy her own world. Surrender and be spared, or resist and be erased." Then the alien voice beneath hers rose like a tide, carrying words in a language no human had heard yet somehow. All could understand, "You will give us your cities, your fleets, your voices, or you will be taken by the silence." And as the transmission ended, the image was replaced by a slow, expanding wave of the strange sound from before, the deep scraping and pulsing that seemed to vibrate inside the human mind. It rolled across the planet, causing headaches, confusion, and panic. Some collapsed on the streets. Others ran without knowing where they were going. Emergency systems triggered across the cities, and hospitals filled in minutes on the top floor of the United Earth Capitol. The president stood with the Security Council watching the chaos unfold, their advisors shouting about defense lines and evacuation plans, while military commanders called for immediate deployment of the fleet. There was no more debate, the order was given. The old war fleets hidden in the asteroid belts were to be rearmed, the defense satellites in Mars' orbit activated, and the lunar fortress powered to full strength. Earth would not wait for the enemy to arrive unchallenged back in the silent zone. The Orion crew received the same broadcast, but for them it came directly from the Anvari fleet around the Great Ring Station. The science officer warned that the sound was stronger here, more concentrated, and that if it continued they would start to lose focus and memory. Captain Cross ordered the ship to cut all comms except for internal channels, knowing they could not risk the crew's minds being pulled apart. Yet even with the silence inside the ship, the presence of the alien station ahead pressed against their thoughts. Like an unseen current drawing them in the station's surface began to shift, opening wide gates along its rim through which streams of black glass ships flowed, each moving with impossible precision toward the swirling blue light at the center. The engineers speculated they were drawing power from the black hole itself, charging for something massive, perhaps a weapon, capable of striking across light years in an instant. The crew realized the war signal to Earth might only be the first strike, and that something far worse was being prepared within the ring. Cross knew they had to get closer if they were to find Lyra and learn the truth before the Anvari unleashed whatever they were building. But the closer they came, the more the crew felt the pull in their minds. Visions flickered in their thoughts. Cities, burning oceans, boiling skies filled with black ships, and in each vision, the silver-eyed voice standing among the wreckage watching silently, the medic confirmed. These visions were the same frequency weapon working through the station's field, and warned that if they stayed too long, they would. no longer know what was real and what was planted by the enemy, yet the choice was no longer theirs, because the black ships behind them closed in, forcing Orion toward the inner gates. The crew braced as they crossed the threshold into the rings. Interior, where the blue light from the black hole glared like a frozen sun around them, vast towers of alien metal rose from the station floor, each humming with energy, and in the center, suspended above the gravity well, was a single platform, and on it stood Lyra Kane, alive. Her gaze locked on Orion, as if she had been waiting. Her voice echoed inside every mind, not through speakers but directly in thought, saying, "You have come too far, you cannot win." And yet beneath those words, the captain thought he heard something else. A faint, almost silent whisper. "Help me." It was enough to make him push the ship forward into the heart of the enemy, even as every instinct screamed to turn back and far behind in the solar defense grid Earths. Fleets formed into battle lines, their engines burning bright against the dark, because whether the Orion returned or not, the first war in a century had already begun, and the Envari were coming. The air inside the Orion seemed to grow heavier as they crossed deeper into the ring station's heart, the light from the swirling blue core casting shadows that moved in ways no light should move. The crew worked in silence, their focus split. Between the controls and the image of Lyra standing alone on the platform above the black hole, her silver eyes catching the glare like cold fire. Captain Cross ordered the ship to hold position just outside the platform's reach as a team prepared to move in. But before they could, a sudden wave of sound hit them, not through the ears, but directly into the mind. The world around them seemed to bend and shift, the walls of the ship melting into visions of their own memories, twisted and wrong. Cross saw Earth's oceans on fire. The navigator saw his family calling to him from inside a collapsing star. The medic saw her own reflection smiling back with silver eyes. The science officer shouted through the haze that it was the Envari's mental weapon magnified by the black hole's power, and that the closer they got, the stronger it would become. The crew fought to hold on to reality as the captain led a small landing party toward the platform. Weapons ready, their boots clanged against the alien metal of the bridge that arched out over the glowing abyss. And as they approached Lyra, she did not move. Her voice entered their minds, not with the cold alien tone, but with a rush of human urgency. "You must listen. I have only moments before they take me again. They are the Envari, an ancient race, older than the stars we see now. They survive by feeding on the bond between a people and their voice. When they take the voice, they take the trust, the unity, the will to fight. The world falls apart from within, and they claim it without battle. They have taken many worlds, and they will take more unless you destroy this place." Cross demanded to know how, and Lyra's eyes flickered silver then back to human as she fought. "For control, you must destroy the core. The black hole's power is the heart of their weapon. But if you do this, I will be lost. The pull will take me with it. I am bound to it now." The words struck the team like a physical blow. The captain's jaw tightened as he weighed the impossible choice: save Lyra and risk the galaxy, or destroy the station and lose her forever before he could speak. The air around the platform shimmered, and the alien leader appeared, a towering figure of liquid metal, shaped like a shadow given form. Its voice rolled like thunder across their minds, saying, "She is ours, as you will be." The bridge beneath their feet began to tremble as the Envari fleet outside the ring moved into attack formation. The science officer's voice came through the comm in a rush. "They are powering something in the core. It is not just a weapon, it is a pulse. If it fires, every voice in the network will be silenced at once." Cross's decision came fast. He ordered the engineer on Orion to prepare the overload charges and the landing team to cover Lyra as they moved in. The alien leader extended a hand, and a wave of force slammed into them, throwing two soldiers over the edge. Into the glow, their screams lost in the endless. Pull of the black hole, Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her head as silver light poured from her eyes and mouth, the alien voice using her body to scream across the station. Stop them as drones poured from the shadows, small black machines like shards of broken glass. The landing team fought desperately, weapons firing in bursts of heat and light. The captain reached Lyra, grabbing her arm, but she pushed him back, shouting, "Go now before they take you too." Her voice broke into the alien tone. Again, promising the silence will take Earth. The charges were set, the timer ticking, as the team retreated under heavy fire drones, exploding around them in flashes of white. Cross was the last to leave, his gaze locked on Lyra, standing alone at the edge of the platform, her hair whipping in the strange wind rising from the core. She gave him one final human smile and mouthed, "Thank you," before the silver swallowed her eyes again and the platform split in a burst of energy. The team ran for the shuttle. As the station began to tear apart, the swirling blue light of the black hole growing brighter as its containment failed, the Orion pulled away at full burn, the shockwave chasing them through the collapsing gates of the ring behind them. The station imploded, the black hole flaring and then shrinking to nothing, leaving only empty space where moments ago an enemy stronghold had stood. The crew sat in silence, knowing they had stopped the pulse, but at the cost of the one they came to save yet. As the last echoes of the explosion faded, a faint signal flickered on the comm, a whisper almost lost in static, saying the Envari were only the first. Something worse is coming, and then it was gone. The Orion emerged from the silence, zoned into the familiar stars of human space. But there was no relief waiting for them. The solar defense grid was alive with movement, war fleets stretching from the edge of Mars' orbit to the moons of Jupiter. Black ships of the Envari already, piercing the outer lines, their liquid metal hulls shifting as they absorbed weapon fire and returned it in lances of white heat. The comm channels were chaos, filled with the voices of commanders calling for reinforcements and pilots screaming. As their ships were torn apart, Captain Cross pushed Orion's engines to maximum weaving through the burning wreckage of friendly cruisers to reach the heart of the defense where the United Earth flagship was directing the battle. The President's voice came through tight and controlled, saying, "Orion, you have been gone too long. If you have anything to stop this war, now is the time." Cross replied that the Envari pulse weapon was destroyed, but their fleets were still strong, and Earth could not hold forever. As if to underline his words, a wave of enemy ships broke through the outer defenses and plunged toward Earth, their weapons charging for a planetary strike. The science officer scanned the Envari formation and found a single, massive ship at its center. Unlike the others, its hull was dark and still, almost like a solid shadow. The readings showed an energy buildup inside it that matched the black hole core they had just destroyed, meaning this ship carried the same kind of power weapon in a mobile form. If it fired, the results would be the same as the station. Every voice in the network silenced in an instant. Cross realized they had one chance to end the battle. He ordered all available ships to focus fire on the shadow vessel, while Orion cut through the enemy lines to deliver the overload charges directly to its core. The crew moved with grim determination as the ship dove into the densest part of the fight, weaving past debris and enemy fire drones latched onto the hull and were blasted away by the gunners while the engineer worked to keep the shields from collapsing. The closer they got to the shadow vessel, the colder the air felt, as if something inside it was reaching into their bones. When they finally breached its outer armor and docked, the landing team found the interior unlike anything they had seen. A vast, hollow space filled with twisting metal tendrils pulsing with silver light, and at the center a tall, narrow structure like a spire, humming with the low-frequency sound that had haunted them since Lyra's last broadcast. They moved quickly, planting the charges along its base. But as they worked, the sound changed, becoming a voice that was not the Envari's and not human. It spoke in a whisper that shook the air, saying, "You have killed our feeders, but we are not gone. We are the shadow between galaxies. The war you see is only a door to what waits beyond. The tendrils began to move, lashing toward the team. The medic was caught and pulled into the spire, vanishing in a flash of silver light. The others fired desperately, cutting through the moving metal until the charges were set and the timer armed. The captain gave the order to retreat, but as they ran, the voice followed them, promising that the silence would fall on all worlds. Whether now or later, they reached Orion and undocked as the Envari ship tried to pull away, its hull shimmering with the same collapsing energy as the station had. The explosion ripped through its center, sending shockwaves across the battle. The enemy fleets faltered, breaking formation and scattering as if some unspoken command had been lost. The defense lines rallied, pressing the attack and forcing the remaining ships to flee back toward the edges of space. The war was over for now, but victory felt thin. The losses heavy as Orion limped back toward Earth. The president hailed them, her voice softer now, saying, "You have saved us, Captain, but you have also shown us how close we were to falling. We will be ready next time, and there will be a next time." Cross looked out at the stars, knowing she was right, because somewhere out there beyond the reach of their ships and their weapons, something worse than the Envari was waiting. And perhaps Lyra's last whisper had not been a warning at all, but a promise. As Orion descended toward Earth, the world below cheered for its heroes, unaware that the shadow between galaxies had marked them and would return. And when it did, the silence would come with it.